Did 38-year-old Johnny Cashman pass away from a gastrointestinal bleed, or was his life taken by someone he tried to help? Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky, and today I want to talk about the Johnny Cashman case. Now, when I first heard about this case, I had to dive into it because there were a lot of details that didn't make sense. A lot of details about Johnny Cashman's death, as well as the investigation. So I dug into this case, and I knew that I was going to have to talk about it. So today we're going to talk about Johnny Cashman, and you let me know, do you think that investigators got it wrong this time? Johnny Cashman was a 38-year-old man from Maine, and his family lived back in Maine, but he had moved to Lynchburg, Virginia. Now, he had a small apartment, and he had a girlfriend in Virginia. He was known as a very nice guy. People who knew him said that he had a big heart and that he liked to help people out. Now, this is going to come into play as we go into this story. So, Johnny Cashman was close with his family, even though they lived in Maine, and he kept in very close contact with his mom. He talked to her almost every day. So, when his mom didn't hear from him on April the 14th of 2022, she became worried, but she also felt as though maybe he was out doing something, maybe he was busy. So on April 19th, after not hearing from Johnny for 5 days, his mom called Lynchburg, Virginia Police Department to do a welfare check at Johnny's apartment. Lynchburg PD entered Johnny's apartment on April 19th, and what they found was Johnny Cashman deceased, laying on the floor. Now, after a very brief investigation, law enforcement believed that Johnny Cashman had passed away from natural causes. So they contacted Johnny's family and they let them know what they had found. Now, Johnny's family was kind of surprised because Johnny Cashman, although he suffered from anxiety and bipolar disorder, Johnny was in good physical health. He had just had a full wellness check done 4 months prior, and his doctor had given him a clean bill of health. I mean, Johnny was only 38 years old. Now, I do want to mention that he did have an alcohol dependency problem. So there was a few issues that Johnny had with his mental health, but physically, he was in good health. And his doctor had just confirmed that 4 months prior. Obviously, the family was shocked, and they asked investigators about a potential autopsy. Now, law enforcement told the Cashman family that an autopsy would not be necessary. They were actually rejecting the autopsy as well as the medical examiner. So Johnny's family asked them, would it be worth it for them to pay for their own autopsy? Because they were very confused about what had happened to Johnny. I mean, he was young, he was in good shape, and he passed away from natural causes. Now, law enforcement told the Cashman family that Johnny had passed away from a GI bleed, and basically that they would not need an autopsy. They were going to go ahead and cremate him and send his remains back to his family in Maine. The Cashman family went along with law enforcement because they trusted them, and they felt as though investigators would be able to recognize someone who had passed away from natural causes. So they went ahead and had Johnny cremated and had his remains sent back to Maine. Now, on April 29th, 10 days after law enforcement found Johnny Cashman, his girlfriend and her mother went back to the apartment. They had the permission of the Cashman family to go inside and grab a few things that she had left inside the apartment. And when her and her mother walked in that apartment, they were shocked. There was body fluid wall to wall. It was all over the walls, the doors, the floors. It did not look like someone who had lost their life to natural causes. So Johnny's girlfriend became suspicious, and she photographed the entire apartment because she wanted to send it to Johnny's family. Now, on the way out of the apartment, Johnny's girlfriend and her mother ran into his neighbor. Johnny's neighbor told them that he had a security camera, and this security camera was right above his front door. It also covered the area in front of Johnny's apartment door. So Johnny's girlfriend and her mother begin going through the camera footage, and what they see shocks them. They see Johnny return home to his apartment at just after 3 p.m. on April the 14th. He walks to his front door, he unlocks the doorknob, and he walks inside. Now, only minutes later, you can hear two men arguing, and one of the men is saying, "Stop, what are you doing? Stop doing that." And 8 minutes later, you see an unknown man walk out of Johnny Cashman's apartment. He walks out of the apartment and down the stairs. Now, less than a minute later, he walks back up the stairs and walks over to the front door and wipes down the doorknob with the sleeve of his hoodie. So he's basically covering his tracks. He walks down the stairs and he disappears. So when Johnny's girlfriend sees this, she's shocked, and she takes this footage and she sends it to Johnny Cashman's sister, Sarah. Sarah is obviously extremely surprised because Lynchburg Police Department has assured the Cashman family that he passed away from natural causes. So immediately, the Cashman family contacts Lynchburg Police Department. Now remember, Johnny Cashman's family was assured by Lynchburg PD that Johnny passed away from natural causes. So they've already cremated his body, and they never performed an autopsy. So now they don't have Johnny's body, and they don't have an autopsy. And now there's new information that leads the Cashman family to believe that Johnny's life was taken by this strange man that's seen leaving his apartment right after the two men had an argument. So Lynchburg Police Department launches a search for this individual that is seen in the camera footage. And eventually, in the beginning of May, they find this man. His name is Stephen Church. Now, Stephen Church is originally from Tennessee, and he had moved to Lynchburg, Virginia for a job, but his employment fell through when he got there. So he had no money and no place to stay. So Johnny Cashman, being the good guy that he is, told Steve Church that he could stay with him until he got back on his feet. So this is where Johnny Cashman's kindness came back to bite him. Now, Steve Church says that when Johnny Cashman returned home, he was intoxicated. But he also says that they had a conversation and that when he left, Johnny Cashman was fine. But we know that that's not true because you can hear the two men fighting on the security camera footage. You can hear Johnny Cashman struggling even after Stephen Church leaves the apartment. So Johnny was not fine when this man left the apartment. So what did he have to hide? The scene inside Johnny's apartment was horrendous. There was body fluid everywhere. It was on the walls. There were handprints on the walls. There were footprints. You could see where Johnny was struggling to get around this apartment. There was body fluid. I don't even know how to really explain it. And I'm going to post some of the photos that were taken by Johnny's girlfriend. I can't post them all because some of them are way too graphic. But I'm going to post the ones that I can. And you're going to be able to see what I'm talking about. This scene looked like a human being had basically exploded inside this apartment. And law enforcement is telling the Cashman family that this is a gastrointestinal bleed. Now, is it possible that something like this could have happened naturally? I guess it's possible. But what are the chances that Johnny Cashman has a GI bleed that causes him to spew body fluid all over this apartment at the same time that he's having this altercation with his house guest? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, you can hear Johnny pleading with Stephen Church. He's saying, stop. Why are you doing this? Stop what you're doing. And then 8 minutes later, Stephen Church walks out of the apartment and wipes down the doorknob with the sleeve of his hoodie. And there's nothing suspicious about that to investigators. I mean, it just seems odd that Stephen Church told investigators that he had nothing to do with any of this, that it just was a coincidence that Johnny Cashman had a GI bleed right after this altercation. So it just didn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to the Cashman family. Now, Lynchburg investigators go back and they begin looking into Stephen Church. Now, remember, there's no body and there's no autopsy because law enforcement did not believe that it was necessary. They rejected the autopsy along with the medical examiner. So now there's this situation because now we have Stephen Church, and law enforcement never acknowledged that there was even someone else inside this apartment when this situation happened with Johnny Cashman. So now law enforcement is kind of in a bad position because they have suggested to the Cashman family to have Johnny cremated and sent back to Maine without an autopsy because they say that he passed away from natural causes. But now it looks as though it has something to do with Stephen Church. So investigators look into Stephen Church and they come out and they say that they did not find anything suspicious, any sign of wrongdoing. So Lynchburg Police Department does not believe that this confrontation between Johnny and Stephen Church right before he has a gastrointestinal bleed that takes his life is suspicious. They don't think that Johnny yelling from inside the apartment, "Stop doing that, what are you doing?" is suspicious. They don't think that Stephen Church returning to the apartment after he's left to wipe down the doorknob with the sleeve of his hoodie is odd. So that's kind of strange, right? I mean, wouldn't it seem as though investigators might pick up on that and feel as though maybe Stephen Church had something to do with this death? But in late October, investigators in Lynchburg closed the case. They say that Johnny Cashman passed away from natural causes. He passed away from natural causes after pleading for help, after there was a strange individual in his apartment, after this individual tried to cover his own tracks, and after this horrific scene inside Johnny's apartment. So, does that make any sense whatsoever? A lot of people believe that Lynchburg investigators dropped the ball on this one, that they got it wrong. And now they're trying to cover for themselves because they told the Cashman family to have Johnny Cashman cremated without an autopsy. So let me know what you think. Do you think that this is just complete incompetence on the part of Lynchburg investigators? Or do you think that Johnny really did pass away from natural causes and that it's just a coincidence that he happened to have this altercation inside of his apartment right before it happened? How did investigators go into this scene and feel as though there was nothing suspicious about this? They obviously didn't see the footage from the neighbor's camera because the first time that was seen was on April the 29th after Johnny's girlfriend and her mother run into the neighbor. So how well was this crime investigated? And what repercussions do Johnny Cashman's family have now? I mean, are they going to be able to get some sort of justice after there was no autopsy and now the crime scene's gone? You know, in my opinion, Lynchburg investigators dropped the ball big time on this one. And I'm still looking into this case because there are a few people around that still have information about this case. So I'm still looking into this case. And as soon as I have some updates, we're going to talk about this. Like I said, this happened in 2022, and the case was closed in October of 2022. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'll keep you all updated on what I find in the Johnny Cashman case. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. And if you liked this video, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. I hope that you all had an amazing day, and we'll see you next time.